Good morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Moss, the regular host of the program called What's Going on allpointstv.com. And we're doing a special program this afternoon. We're coming to you on Thursday at around 1:20, and we're going to be with you about for the next 35 minutes or so. And I'm very glad to have with us Mr. Darwin Jiles, who is one of the hardest working persons in the Republican Party. We say James Brown's the hardest person working in the show business. This guy right here is the hardest working person in politics. And we're going to be talking about a new position that Mr. Jiles just got, and then we'll just kind of go from there and see how the conversation goes. So, Darwin, I want to welcome you to the studio.
Well, thank you for having me back, and it's always a pleasure, Mr. Moss.
I just can't believe how much I hear your name out there in the public. You're just all over the place. Tell us about, because I'll be learning something today myself, tell us about the position you just got from the, I think you, won, was it a race you ran in?
Yes, I was elected over the incumbent 60% vote, so that was a pretty surprise upset. First time running, I was recruited for the position, but I've been fulfilling the duties of the position for quite some time with Flint urban culture and things of that nature. But the person who I ran against, Linda Lee Tarver, she has put in some inroads in the Republican Party, and I just intend to build on those, on the foundation and the positive things that she did do to capture the next generation and do some things. But as the Michigan Republican Party ethnic vice chair, I ran a very principled campaign, a very honest and open campaign, and the delegates made the right decision.
Well, we know they made the right decision if they got you in the office there. Let me ask you how that voting took place. Who were the person that voted for you to become installed in that office?
It is the precinct voting delegates. We elect delegates to go to state convention, and from there they vote, cast a vote. And I was voted with, again, 60% of the vote for this turnout.
Were you surprised? It seemed like you were surprised by the turnout, or were you surprised?
Well, I would say there was a lot of people that were surprised by it, including the incumbent, because I spoke with her briefly backstage. But more importantly, I never felt that I was surprised. In fact, I always knew I was qualified. I always knew that my campaigning and my hard efforts, putting up political vlogs and just, canvassing and doing the things that I've done with so many other campaigns, made me well qualified to run, and not only just run, but to win. And when I seen how my opponent's campaign lacked any type of real positions, I took a stance to let my positions and convictions be made known and completely run on that. And because of that, I knew that I was going to be favorable, extremely favorable.
Mm-hmm. The election was held in all of these
Lansing
cities,
Center
in Lansing.
and Lansing, correct.
Okay.
Well, it's a two-day event in which Friday I pretty much go to every caucus throughout, and I give my speech and talk to the delegates. And honestly, I had a handful of campaign supporters, and I want to send a special thank you out to all my supporters and to my wife, Natasha Giles, Kendrick Wallace, and even locally, a good friend, Megan from Flint, who all came down to help and support me, David Wells. Just a lot of support for just helping me and standing up to do what I was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, it sounds like this position is one that is in line with the Republican Party trying to reach out into the minority community. Is that pretty much what this is about? Because I know they keep saying that there are not very many blacks that are in the Republican Party, but I know the party is open to having more blacks participating, and if they don't participate, you really can't blame the party for the lack of persons that are showing up.
Correct.
And so now, what will you be doing now that you've been elected? What are some of the things you'll be doing?
Well, I'm over every bit of ethnic outreach, ethnic activity whatsoever. So this is not just to the inner city. So I have a lot of different plans concerning the Latino Americans, Arab Americans, Jewish Americans. I mean, I have a lot of different plans to just unite America based on the American spirit and the Republican principles that I believe are freedom, and we need to live out that lifestyle of freedom amongst minorities in order to bring in those minorities we're looking for. And also, I would like to give a special thank you to Reverend C. O'Brien, because he gave an endorsement and endorsed me and stuck with me in spite of smear tactics that were being used. And he supported me and stuck with me. And I'm actually going to be a regular on this show now, the America on Edge, weekly. I believe Tuesday is the next time, this upcoming Tuesday. I will be on the show around 6 o'clock. And he's been just an adamant supporter of me and believes in me. And we have a lot of plans, even at the national level, to do some things. So, he was a big part of me winning. And also it's going to help with the outreach of the inner city and with my job description and my duties. So he's going to launch a lot of town halls throughout the urban communities and engagement town halls nationally. And I'm going to help with those efforts here in Michigan. And I plan on working with everyone, and more importantly about what I have to do outside. I have to do a lot of joining together in the party with minorities. You wouldn't believe that there's actually fractions in the minority within the party that seem to be fractured as well. And I don't fully understand it, but I think politics, in order to turn out minorities to get involved in the political system, period, we need to stop the backbiting, the smear campaigns, all the negativity. Those things just turn people away. They face enough negativity in this world alone to get along with, get involved with politics and go through it. I would tell individuals a lot of times, if it was just off the negativity, that's not a healthy environment to be in. So I want to urge everyone from my own party to practice what we should preach, and to create an environment for minorities in and outside of the party, so that there's not a lot of, division and strife and just foolishness going on. Because if right now, that's kind of, in spite of the victory, that's kind of what I've had to face, despite me being the victor in the situation, is a lot of unnecessary foolishness. And that is a big distraction to the minority vote. Even if those who may think they're right for attacking, or they have a following, or they have a purpose in doing it, people, whether they're Democrat or Republican, are going to say, why are you attacking this young man who's overcome so much? You've seen all that I've been through, and how is that going to help minority engagement? It's just not going to work that way.
When I first heard about the backbiting that you were going through, my first thought about it was probably, it was that it was coming from outside, because I know what it is for Republicans to be standing up in the community with so small a number. And I was surprised to hear you say a few minutes ago there's really some people inside the party that is also pot-shotting what you're doing. So you're saying some of the politics internal to the party, is it kind of like
there's jealousy? A lot of different agendas going on, and I would say for myself, these individuals are attacking me for their own personal reasons and what they fear, maybe what I stand for, what I can do in this position. However, my goal has just been to stay focused on the ethnic vice chair position and how I can continue to further better the inner city. As we are hearing things such as Meijers closing here in Flint, Krogers closing on the north side. These are two north side grocery stores. Where else are they going to go? I mean, for someone who lived right on Stedron Street, around the corner from the Kroger, I lived on Concord Street. I lived on Jackson. I mean, I don't know what I would have did, many nights when I needed to get groceries and I would have to travel, and Meijers not there, Kroger. So there's a crisis, an economic crisis, that I would like to help bring some solutions to do some things. I really don't have time to focus on the attacks or the smear campaigns. I think it's politics. These individuals are not serious about supporting the inner city or making any real difference. It's unnecessary, because minorities will not react well to that type of environment.
I'm surprised to hear it, because you have a lot of animosity just because you're in the minority group of the community. 95% of us voted last election for president for the Democratic, candidate.
Correct.
And we know what the numbers are in general elections, where you have about 90% of blacks voting in the Democratic candidate in the party. And so when I hear this, when I heard the backbiting that was going on, I could not believe that it was inside the party, given the smallness of the numbers as it already stands.
Well, there's one individual that was outside of the party that were doing it, and I think he is of a different political affiliation. But I think overall, I don't know these individuals. I've never did anything personally to them whatsoever. No one's ever personally reached out to me. It's just been completely attacks. I mean, I won the election Saturday, and first of all, there was attacks being done ever since I worked for a United States Senate campaign as of the previous year, and I was unaware of who was doing all of this. But yeah, there's different malicious players that are out there doing this from behind the scenes, and I'm really appreciative that the Michigan State Police could stand up and do the right thing. My previous attorney, Michael Brzezinski, and Meijers from Lansing, and published a correct article that painted me in the right picture and verified the false information and verified what was true about me, and set the record straight that I don't have any felonies, that I don't have 2 gun conviction charges, that those things are false smear campaigns and untrue. So I'm really thankful. So with that behind me now, I don't intend to entertain that, and I want to move forward. I had an offer today just to go to Fox 2, let it rip. And it's like I declined, because I don't want to continue to entertain the foolishness when you have an inner city that are in crisis, in the Flint, Saginaw area especially, and including even in certain parts of Pontiac. Mm-hmm. So my goal is just to make a difference, to be positive, to move forward, to really work with my mentors. As I said, CEO Bryant, West, for Tea Party leader, who ran previously for lieutenant governor, just a lot of different people, and staying strong on bold principles, and despite me standing up for an individual, Dave Ijema, on a matter previously, I am in a position now where Dave would want me to do the right thing and speak bold truth and stay true to my conservative principles. But he's not expecting me to represent him in any way.
Let me ask you about C.O. Brian. I was surprised you mentioned his name. Where is Brian located? Is he what's
Louisiana? They're there. But I'm be honest. I mean, C.O. is like national. I mean, he's crossing the country. I mean, he's a little bit of everywhere. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's currently where he's from. And so he has shows and things down there.
Does he have a radio program?
Yes, he does.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Those
American on Edge.
Yeah. Those that don't know C.L. Brian put out a film called Runaway Slave that was a national event, and didn't make it too much into the commercial theaters, but he did. It's a wonderful film about someone, in his case, that broke away from what he called the runaway slave. In this case, was running away from the Democratic Party plantation. And I was asking, this is Black History Month, and I spoke at a church this past Sunday, and I was asking, how did they flip the switch on us and have blacks voting 90 to 95% in the party of the Ku Klux Klan, which is really quite an event for them to have toppled the history, and now they have black people thinking they're voting for the party of Lincoln.
Correct. And the thing is, that is what my whole run is about. That's what the solutions and being in this position is all about, setting the record straight. One of the principles that in the plan that I'm unfolding is to exhibit Freedom Life initiatives. And in these initiatives, I'm going to educate the inner city and minority groups on the legacy of freedom within the Republican Party and principle. I have some wonderful ideas. But speaking of that, me and CL, I was just on his show, and that the thing is, and this has even been documented by other research I've seen. Mm-hmm. When Martin Luther King was left in jail and he got out with JFK, that's pretty much where things went off, and it's really never came back. And that was a political move But then you get down later, there was some civil rights bills and things that were signed, by the Democratic Party. And so it helped overshadow some of the things that happened historically, and those principles, unfortunately, have been very lost in this younger generation, and they are not aware of it. So the education has to be the attempts to do that has to be very, very out front. And that's what I plan on doing with this position, is educating minorities on the fact of the 13th and 14th Amendment, just in principle, not necessarily. The thing is this: if you have a person who understands liberalism and conservatism, it's not really whether you're a Democrat or Republican, because anybody can say that, and you'll see Democrats and Republicans support policies that's contrary to their platform and principles. However, when you look at what liberalism and what conservatism is, you're one or the other. You can't be both. And if you are partially a little more one or the other, it really does matter what issues you are supporting. So you should be able to know that as someone in the inner city who have been under the influence of one particular party for a very, very long time. And so my goal is just to help individuals realize that is personal responsibility that will help pull you out. That's what helped pull me out. I'm speaking from life examples and transitions. So if I believe in personal responsibility, shouldn't I be able to create a workshop to show people how to become more personally responsible? It's time that we bring our Republican values to the surface and show people practically how to live out their principles, the principles of republicanism. The name alone doesn't mean much when someone is hungry or their economy is crumbling around them, like in Flint. They need to know, how can we survive? And if we don't, they're going to go back to criminal means, and things are going to continue to get worse. We've had a lot of money and a lot of efforts to downtown Flint, under Mayor Walling. But let's just be honest. We should have been trying to save Kroger and Meijers. Honestly, I think those two, businesses alone, I think was more worthwhile to everybody than just focusing on the downtown Flint. Now, I've helped downtown Flint as well. I was a part of the Uptown Reinvestment Marketing Committee in college. I helped launch this before it even was viable downtown. So, but we have to understand that if we have entrepreneurial capitalism or entrepreneurship principles, and understand we have to help people have and develop their own means of being self-sufficient, then that is the American dream. We were not people before we began to vote liberal and for the Democratic Party of individuals who we had our own occupations, our own trades, skill sets. We knew how there was a generation before us that knew if you didn't have any money, you got to do something, you got to work. You got to go out there and pull your sleeves up, go rake some leaves, change some tires, brush some shoes. This generation now, unfortunately, are very challenged by that type of work ethic. So they may not understand that. So these are the practical things we have to go and demonstrate to individuals on the micro level in order to bring individuals to the reality of who they are and what they can become. And it's only through that and that alone that we can actually influence someone to vote for greater principles. Because as a minority leader, and I go into and this isn't a sales position, I can't lie and pitch to you something that's not correct. If I say you should vote Republican, I have to be able to show you why you should vote Republican, and I have to have evidence that the Republican Party is doing what they need to do to back up that they want minorities to vote for them. And the previous chairman of the RNC clearly said it. We can't be a party that do things contrary to state that we don't want blacks and minorities to vote for us. We have to put more effort out in order to bring in and put our money where our mouth is. One of the things right now that I present, this is a big goal. This is not a small project, but I believe with all my heart this project or something similar would be very, very well. Well, the historic and cultural Northland Mall is closing. Well, my proposal would be to get some of the predominant leaders of the Republican Party, especially right here within the state, to come together and help save that mall because of several significant reasons. First of all, It is something in which that if we can save those jobs, we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're showing not only do we want votes, but we care about our principles. You have jobs leaving in Flint, and you have jobs leaving in Detroit, in those particular areas, and unemployment rate is skyrocketing. When there's unemployment, there's more criminal activity. So the thing should be for any Republican Party or Republican or conservative, to step up and go in and present enterprise friendly and business plans that can bring a solution to the economic crisis we're facing. And that will show a person in an inner city, because they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when you don't show you care in the inner city, when you're going through all this type of stuff, then nothing else really matters. And so in Detroit is even a better investment because of the police chief that they have. They do have a decrease in crime, and I'm hoping the police chief can stay there. I mean, there's a lot of investment that's there. We have to have this stability there in order to invest and do those things, and that's been a plus now. We need more work on it here in Flint, but we could get this mall and show people how to practice small business. We could show people and develop a conference center to have predominant leaders such as, Tim Scott or Mia Love or Condoleezza Rice. I mean, just imagine these predominant black leaders being able to land in Detroit and be able to come in and commune with the community and be there for that purpose. I mean, this would be a massive thing just to focus on an entrepreneurial zone in Detroit to capture and to promote and live out our principles. So I'm not there to just get votes. I'm there to show people we can live our principles, and what we stand for is better than what you've had. Because if you look around, Flint, Detroit, and everything before Republican leadership came in was the worst that has ever have been. And that's proof enough. But if we don't walk it, if we don't live it, if we don't go and do these things before them, it's going to be very, very difficult.
I'm surprised at the track record of the Democratic Party and the blacks' loyalty to the party, because the track record is abysmal. When you were talking about the educational piece a few minutes ago, I think that's really critical. I think if blacks would understand the actual history, not the fairy tale that's being told about the history where the Democrats were our saviors, and they've always played that role. When they played none of those roles that they're talking about, these roles are played by Republicans.
Correct.
And when you're talking about the educational piece,
it's
what are you going to do around that? Because I think that's a foundation for everything else you might want.
Correct. And just to comment on what you just said, and it's not to give a person a fish, but teach them how to fish. Republicans have stood for self-sufficiency, personal responsibility, entrepreneurship, self-help. Those are the type of things that freedom, liberty, limited government, those are the type of things that help a person prosper.
And would benefit blacks.
It has benefited black. That is, when you look at how General Motors, I mean, that is still capitalism. That is still entrepreneurship capitalism. That was a small business at one point that got larger, and it grew and grew. And so what I'm saying is, this could be the Freedom Life Initiative, something going to be centered around launching workshops throughout minority communities in order to live out our principles, to touch on every topic of sensitivity, to discuss those things, to talk about, have an environment where we can discuss those problems and public issues, and we can even get into a lot of the social issues, to a lot of different things, concerning whether they feel is police brutality, whether they, we can get through a lot of the falsehood, in that type of learning environment. And so that's the Freedom Life Initiative that we plan on. That's a more micro level, but I'm really, really interested on seeing what the Republican Party has to say about creating a mega center to do these type of discipleship, and something that we can practice enterprise and business, because that is, to me, the grounding key. We have a lot of business owners in the Republican Party. We need to buy a strip mall. We need to get some stuff going and live out our principles before people, and people will want to be a part of that.
One of the principles, Darwin, that you mentioned earlier was personal responsibility.
Correct.
I don't hear Democrats talking about that. I hear them talking about more and more dependency among those in the black community, and that's what's gotten the conditions so out of control right now.
Correct. Oh, definitely governmental parenting. I had a person mention to me just not too long ago, but they said, Darwin, there's people in certain neighborhoods, and this was a black person that said, look, they haven't worked in like years. Like these are young people from the time of 18 and growing up, or even before 18, because I was working when I was 14, 15 and younger. They have never held a job. How are you going to get that person? And by the time they get kids or maybe drug addictions and debt, I mean, by that time, it almost looks like a very losing battle. I mean, it is a losing battle, and it almost may be hopeless. So with the type of complex that I'm speaking of, is no doubt in my mind something that would be a direct investment to the Republican Party and leadership to say, listen, it's time we capture the next generation. Just imagine if Northland, this mall, could be bought out and with other businesses, and we turn this into an entrepreneurial complex, conference center. Not only that, you also put African American or Black American Republic Museum. Think of this: out of all the knowledge you've had of how the role of republicanism and the influential Republicans that we know and don't hear about, there's a lot more we don't mention a lot. If there was a museum in Detroit, and I'm not talking about any just old, shabby museum. I mean something that is DC class, where you can bring kids from the inner city year round so that they can learn of these stories, Ben Carson's story and a lot of other individuals' story. So you got to understand, we need those type of investments in order for the Republican Party. Now, I'm just be honest, in order for America to be saved. Against is going down the toilet with the Obama agenda. And the truth of the matter is, if someone doesn't stand up against socialism, if they don't stand up against the racial division, if you don't stand up against all of this mess, then we're going to continue to go down. And so it's going to take an unorthodox plan and a courageous plan, because right now, counting the cost, well, there's nothing to count. There's times, and you know this from inner city, when you broke, you don't have nothing to count. Some people think they're just low on money. You got a little something to count. But some people thank God for that. But when you're really down and out and broke, you don't have nothing to count. Well, the Republicans' track record really right now, they don't really have anything far as to really say for minorities and blacks. Even if you do have the Tim Scotts, the Mia Love, all that, that's fine. But really nationally, we don't really have enough. We don't, and not just the people. What about the communities that are being infected by the working principles, the principles in action? There's a scripture that says, don't just hear the word, but do the word. You can't just be a hearer of it. You got to do it. So one of the things we have to do is live out these principles. And if you were to have this museum where you can just year round teach people there how republicanism and how things, and I'm talking about make this a profitable place. We have to scale it down, knock some things down, consolidate it, make it smaller, open it up, whatever we have to do. We need a historic place and preserve it as much as possible. That's culturally important, that we can keep the jobs that are still there. Promise, bring news attention to it, to bring some things in, and we can make some things happen.
I like the fact of you're going toward the conservative principles. Black people are conservative. They vote liberal, but they basically are a conservative community.
In their foundation.
We've got to make the congruence between who they are and how they vote. They vote different than the community. We are one of the most conservative communities in the country.
And let's just be honest, a lot of young people don't vote from the African American community. So we got a problem not only just from those who vote liberal and the few conservatives that vote conservative, but people don't vote at all. So when you
That's a big problem too.
So when you look at the fact of the engagement, it's just off. There's no passion. There's no inspiration. That's why the people voted for me 60% over someone they had been seeing every day. Within the party, but they didn't see much results outside of the party. Ever since I've been elected, I've been nonstop, and that's why normally, I come in suits, and a lot of times, things are a whole lot more smoother when I come in. I've been literally on the road. I've been in cities, I've been in Detroit, I've been in Flint. I've been back and forth. I've been on phone calls. I've been conversing. I've been doing so many things to make sure that these connections can come to pass. We have a formal today, downtown Flint. Blackstones that we'll be having at 4:30 to discuss Meijers and Kroger and the water issues and all these other issues to help bring that unified voice together. And but it takes a party to do that. One thing that I don't want anyone to be deceived is don't think that I can do this alone. This is going to take the entire party. And right now, I have great hope and faith in the new leadership team we have now. Ronna Rami, I'm not sure if she's the new chairwoman of the Michigan Republican Party, so she won as well there on Saturday afternoon. And I am hoping that she is just as bold as her uncle in a lot of good instances, concerning business and wanting to put up investments and doing certain things. Because if that can happen, then we really can get a lot done, because I'm not looking for anything personally for me. I'm 2 classes from a master's degree. I'm married. I'm happy. My home is paid off. I've really been okay for a while. I live in Oakland County. The Lord has blessed me to where I've had the financial means to do most of this stuff for years for free until I started getting paid for it. And so... Is
this a paid position you have now?
Well, right now we're working. It's possible based on the state committee. There were previously, those were positions that were paid. They cut back on them. And from what I heard, I'm so new to it that I don't know the full details of it. Correct. As of now, I heard expenses. Then I also heard that there could possibly be some future budget increases depending on the chairwoman and how she does things in the budget committee and those things. And so as of right now, what I'm looking for is for them to fund the projects, because this isn't about me. I want the inner city and people to have a chance to know what I know. I watched my grandfather run a small business. I helped him do it. And when he passed away, I helped him. So he ran the viable business for years. He had major accounts in his lawn care business. I'm very savvy in business and corporate America, but it takes personal responsibility, limited government. It takes entrepreneurship and understanding that your problems really are an opportunity, and you have the human flourishing capability to bring the solution. When you look at third world countries and how they develop, it is through foreign aid hurts them. They need more entrepreneurs. They need more of those type of resources in the sense of how to help strengthen entrepreneurship and human flourishing and the rule of law and the things that we already have established pretty much here, but they use those same principles. So how much more in the inner city? We have to not look and depend on dependency. We have to be willing to go forward and grab hold of these principles and experience freedom. Because once they experience freedom and realize, wow, I was waiting on this person and I thought this person was going to give it to me. And you know what? It was your job to make it happen. And God is there for you to do it. And it can do it. I'm a living example of it.
I've seen that example. I was in Birmingham. I was raised in the segregated South, and I saw businesses in the black community.
Correct.
We had to have our own businesses. And I can remember that when I was maybe about 8 years old, I had 3 businesses myself. I had a pop business, had a coat hanger business, and had a shoe shine business. So I saw black people around me having businesses.
And you learned to hustle at a young age, the correct hustle.
I didn't make a lot, but I made my cookie money.
Correct. But you learned the principles. But no, honestly, now listen to this.
Yeah.
When you go into a lot of Arab or Chaldean, stores and gas stations, you see them training their children. The values of business.
Yes.
Well, our communities once were like that as well.
I can testify.
And we were doing that. And so those values have to come back, and we have to live that out for the younger generation. So my goal is to focus on a 3-part plan, one dealing with Freedom Life initiatives, one dealing with the grassroots campaign that I have to have very active and engagement. And the other is I'm working on a large major investment for the inner city. If we're serious about turning this thing around, then let's put a couple $1 million into it.
We're going to get, Darwin, we're going to have to get the history straight.
Correct.
The Republican Party, and I don't sell it as a savior, but I want to get the history straight about the role the Republican Party has played in the advancement of blacks in this country.
Yes.
And the principles of the party. And if we get that straight, I think a lot of the other things will fall in place because we have the narrative right. But right now, the narrative is wrong.
Well, and the thing is this, too.
And guys on the plantation.
And this is where I would say, as Republicans, we have to be at fault for some things and apologize because maybe in all the success we had somehow or another, we didn't, continue the relationship building. Politics is all about relationship. You know, you have people inside the party and you say, well, why are they fighting? Because one wants power over the other. And if one feels one way, you know, the thing is, the Republican Party does have the right principles. I can attest to that. We have to continue building relationships. So over the years, the relationships fell off. And there hasn't been a lot of inner city people that can say, I mean, I have pastors who come to me and they want my support and I'll support them. But they say, Darwin, you know, outside of you, there's really not a lot of other support. And you know, if you come out and support a Republican, you're going to have backlash from the Democrats and a lot of other individuals. I mean, I know who they are. And I've worked on both sides here in Flint, you know, as far as the conservatives that I've worked with. And so we have to have people there that we can build relationships with. And when the momentum comes, they got to be able to trust that we'll go to battle for them. You know, that we'll stand up and support them, that we'll help support their businesses, their families, and we'll help bring some resolution and some solutions to the inner city economic crisis we have right now. I mean, honestly, and I'm even trying to go for Mitt Romney to see if he can come in, as I said, and see if we can get him to draft a plan or do something. I mean, because that's how bold I am with reaching out to whoever can help with this situation as far as in resources and planning to develop a plan and do some things. This is not going to just be for a small turnout. If we want what we have, it goes beyond the ethnic vice chair. We're going to have to reach out higher, and we're going to have to get everybody on board to understand, wait a minute, there's been some errors in the past, but right now we're going to correct it. And that's why I believe I'm here.
There are some real achievers in the Republican ranks right now. When you talk about Condoleezza Rice, we have Ben Carson, who's from Detroit.
Correct.
And there's no use being made of him in Michigan.
In the inner city. And this is what I may have to make some calls. I may have to have CEO Brian, hey, you got to call Ben Carson. He's from Detroit.
Yes.
We need to bring him in.
We got some heavyweights on the national level. I just want to see the story get told, because the Democratic Party has really told the Republican Party's story.
Correct.
And I don't know why the Republican Party has been so silent about its story. It has a wonderful story about the historical role it's played in the advancement of blacks. Every civil rights bill has been passed by Republicans.
As you said before about educating, we have to get some creative ways to get the history out. If you feed people and the youth the history, they will not be led astray by the falsehood or the manipulation of the media, none of that. Which is why the museums, we need a serious museum in Detroit that will really focus on the truth about blacks in our history. We need that. And if we don't have that, it's going to be very hard to convince a minority group who, if you ask them the difference between a Republican and Democrat, from some personal people I've spoken with, they didn't know the difference. And then, okay, let's say they're Democratic, they've been that way, but they're open to see what a Republican is. They don't have a good example. Okay, you have me. They know I work. They know I've been to school. They know I've held a business and I've done these things. But they need more than that. They need to be able to see, wait a minute, this is a group of people and these are really what they stand for. I mean, it's not just with lip service. So us even being against abortion, we need to have more abortion solutions. And I am not talking about compromising, you know, being pro-life. I'm talking about having counseling centers available readily and available to people. I mean, when I talk about this complex in Detroit being built that can really help do things, I mean, we will have every pillar of our faith, and I mean literally, you know, there, that will be able to help people who are, if there was a person that was going through the struggling with the decision of how to have an abortion, there's nobody, and yeah, you do have right to life, you do have those areas, but those areas are not in a geographical location where the public actually comes in most places, you know, and it's not, we need a big picture. We need a complex that gives people the big picture of what the Republican Party is.
Darwin,
historically,
when I hear someone calling Republicans Uncle Toms, that is amazing to me.
Yeah.
You know, based on the history. So if you're talking about getting the history straight, that's a fundamental foundational point of moving this agenda forward in the black community, because they don't know this history that you're talking about.
And Mr. Moss, I gotta just really emphasize this. We need a big location that we can strategically and consistently, educate and teach people on an ongoing basis. We need to have the museum actually that can be built in Detroit. We need to have the Freedom Life initiatives that can be launched throughout the state, and we need to have some serious money behind it. And I mean serious enough to where the Republicans and all of us come out unashamedly and say, this is what if it's $5 million, if whatever it is, we unashamedly understand that we've neglected to share with you how to fish. And therefore, it made you dependent on looking for a fish and not understanding that if you learn how to fish, you'll be able to take care of yourself. You won't depend on no man in person to do anything for you. You know.
Have you heard of this gentleman that's on Facebook, and he has done a YouTube video that went viral his name is Jonathan Gentry.
I think I've heard of him.
And he just simply came out with a video about 6 minutes long, and he's been on a lot of network programs talking about it's not working. What we're doing is not working. And you would think after 50 years of having this track record that we would then decide at some point we need to change course. This is not working for the black community. So if I ask you, let me ask you, what is your first, you're in a very strategic position right now, and what are the first two things, the first two priorities that you would say that you're going to set to do?
I mean, honestly, the very first things getting out is just awareness. I'm making aware of the real issues in the inner city. I mean, they need to see a picture of what's going on. They need to see it. They need to see what's happening because black people are not going to vote for Republicans if they come and see a city that has no grocery store. It's going backwards like Detroit. And Detroit is going up. They just opened Applebee's and some other things there.
In Detroit?
Yeah, in Detroit. You know, they got all type of Whole Foods is in Detroit now. We need that for Flint. But we are going to have to change our priorities here. You know, and so awareness, that's big. And really just trying to get people to understand that it's time to literally walk what we talk, living out our principles. So getting some leaders together that will be willing to support a plan that is going to require some dollars, that is going to require for you to put in some serious resources into something as if like it's never been done before. And that's the awareness alone is the key. You got to get the awareness out so for both sides so that the people can see, okay, you do care about the fact Northland is closing and it's already 55% unemployment in certain places within the city. You can't overlook that. You know, that was quoted from someone, a Detroiter, on my blog last night. So when you look at those things, and we are the majority now ruling, political party, we cannot see a Kroger and a Meijers closing in the city and not speak out and come forward with that. So those are the type of things I gotta get the awareness and let people to see and understand the culture. They gotta know that because if they don't, they will never understand it. And challenge my party, go against the status quo. So it's making awareness and challenge the status quo inside the political party. Because until I can able to do that and strategically bring awareness to my plan and bring awareness to the leaders that need to support it and the resources and status quo, because politics will not do the job.
Okay, well, I'm glad you came in. I heard you had gotten this position. I want to bring you before the viewers at allpointstv.com and let them see what you are, how you look, and then also what position you have. We're looking for great things out of you, Darwin, because we know you are the kind of person that gets into position and you will do a quality job. Okay, and we're going to have to wrap this up at this time. Thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for being with us for the last 45 minutes. And we hope you will join this effort to rebuild the community. And Darwin, you're going to be the lightning rod to bring that about. Until next time, I want you to always follow your dreams. We say on our program that comes on Monday at 2 o'clock to 3. And we know that you're going to do that and want you to be attentive to all things we do here at allpointstv.com. Till next time, we'll see you then.